Can I just ask if everyone can be abstained for the prayer?
Almighty God, may trust and justice remain with this council in their deliberations. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Apologies and applications for leave, if there is any.
Nil, Madam Mayor.
Disclosures of interest, if any.
I'll declare an interest in the late item, Madam Mayor, 9.17.
Can I just ask a question, Madam Mayor, in relation to item 3, apologies and applications for leave of absence? As we haven't set the meeting schedule for the next 12 months, is it possible to defer that until after this, just in case? Because we don't know what the dates will be, so we don't know when to apply, or, I mean, what do you normally do? Because I can't remember. So.
In the previous meetings, we've just proceeded in accordance with the sequence of the table of contents, and then as after, when we do set the time frame for future meetings, probably at the next meeting, or unless that's a conflict, we would take on board the leave of absence of the application for leave of absence there.
So there'd be nothing to preclude councillors, if the meeting schedule's set, from putting in a leave of absence if it relates to next month.
That's correct.
Between this meeting and the next.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nichols.
Madam Mayor, I have a question on page 10.3. The General Manager advised the transport of the buildings are required to be moved by the end of August. Have those buildings been removed?
Oh, we'll get into that in a minute. We've just got to, let's get through the confirmation of the, so if there's no, only Councillor Elstone has a pecuniary interest. Yeah?
Yep.
Oh, good. Confirmations of the previous minutes. They're there in front of them. Councillor Nichols, yes. Councillor Evans. All those in favour?
Oh, I have some questions.
Oh, questions?
Yes, the question I asked them previously.
Oh, yep. Go.
Have the transportable buildings where they should be at this stage?
No, they still remain on site at Carnegie Station on the basis that formwork and concreting, instead of double handling ones, I've sought an extension so that the formwork and concrete work can be completed at the caravan park, and that can be moved on site. And the one to go to Pooncarie, some footings to be poured up there, and the other two I'll put into storage so that they can be retrofitted at some point in time.
So when are we now expecting those to be moved?
Look, I'd suggest in about another month.
Thank you. My question, Madam Mayor, relates to 8.3, page 12 from the previous minutes. The council resolution is not a sentence because it doesn't have a resolution. So it says that the information provided by Councillor McAllister on the activities of the Willandra Lakes Region World Heritage Advisory Committee. Could I suggest that we add the words "be noted"? Also, while I'm going, page 31 of the previous minutes, right at the top it suggests that Councillor Noonan left the meeting, returned to the meeting at 12:27, having previously left at 12:24. I think what happened was Councillor Noonan actually left again straight after that.
Yeah, okay, I know that was this point.
Yeah, so I don't think he was actually around for the end of the meeting. That was my
definitely most
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, is there any other questions on the previous minute? No, I'll put it all those in favour. Carried. 6.1 is outstanding matters from the previous minute, previous meeting. Any movement second on that? Councillor McAllister, second. Councillor Elstone, is there any questions, discussion? Councillor Nichols.
10.3, the Skates Park. It says advises above there that there will be works undertaken for Wentworth swimming pool to allow access to the toilets at the skate park. When?
Well, I could say in the absence of the Director of Roads and Engineering, Councillor Nichols, it's scheduled works within this financial year, and normally we try to achieve work prior to the opening of the pool, but I'd really have to take that one on notice in the absence of Director Gunn at this point in time.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 7.1 is my mayoral report, which I'm happy to move. Is Councillor Elstone. Is there any questions?
I'd like to make a comment, Madam Mayor. I substituted for you on one of those video conferences with the cross-border commissioner. When it got to Wentworth, the link got it. I couldn't get back on.
Yeah.
So they've moved on, that was it. I've got to bring up that about the contractor stuck down.
You may have seen I missed phone call from me. I rang to see how you went because I did hear that there was some trouble with that on that day. So that was me ignoring you to find out what was going on.
Yeah, I was doing on that.
Yeah.
Get back there.
Right, thank you. If there's no further, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 7.2. Actually, before I go off my mayoral minute, now that we've gone into the election of the mayor and deputy mayor for the next 12 months, I'd just like to thank everyone for the support that they've given me as mayor over the last 2 years. We've had things moving quite rapidly, as you would all be aware, with projects and funding that's been on board. Just as over the last 4 years, we've nearly received $38 million within grant money and projects that we've put together. That's projects that have been completed and that are on the drawing board now. And I can see that amount of money is probably going to keep increasing with what's going on with state government and federal government. So, yeah, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone for your support, and I think that we should be all going having elections now, and it's been thrown out for another 12 months. So, yeah, thank you, and we'll move on to 7.2. Ken, do I move there?
You can say that, but we'll just make note that the mayor's vacated the position, and in item 7.2, in terms of the election of mayor and deputy mayor, handle the election of mayor in the first instance. As the general manager and returning officer, note that we have one nomination for mayor, being Councillor Hedricks, duly nominated by Councillor Elstone and seconded by Councillor Haywood, and consent being from Councillor Hedricks. On the basis of one nomination received, I declare that Councillor Hedricks be declared the mayor for the next 12 months.
Thank you.
Further to that, in relation to the nomination of deputy mayor, once again, we have one nomination for that. That is Councillor Elstone, nominated by Councillor Hedricks and seconded by Councillor Haywood and accepted by Councillor Elstone. So I declare that Councillor Elstone be nominated and accepted as deputy mayor for the ensuing 12 months until the general election of councils.
Thank you, councillors. Look forward to continuing what we're doing.
I now hand back over to Mayor Hedricks to complete the meeting and move on to item 7.3. Thank you, councillors.
We will go straight to 7.2. It's sorry, 7.3 is that meeting items of declaration of delegation. So that the recommendations there.
I'll move, Madam Mayor, that the current delegations be carried over, unless anyone with a burning desire to get off a particular committee or what's going on with the committee, but they remain the same. We'll do that. We'll have to nominate people individually.
Well, I'd like to support the way you're trying to move things forward.
Yeah.
Maintain the status quo.
Maintain the status quo. Everyone's happy with that.
Councillor Nichols has got a point.
No, I second it.
Second.
Okay, so Councillor Noonan, so just can you repeat what you...
I would move that the current delegations remain and continue for another 12 months.
It's the recommendation.
You know, it says you have to revoke or amend them.
Oh, sorry.
So I would say that we remain the same, unless anyone has a burning desire, or unless council wants to either withdraw from the delegation or be included in one. They remain the same, and all the delegations as listed here remain.
And Councillor Nichols, you're happy to second that?
Second.
Yep. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 7.4 is stat meeting items, council meeting dates and times.
Move that, Madam Mayor.
Happy to move that we continue,
I'll remove the recommendation.
yep, as is there. I have a mover on that. Do we have a seconder?
Second up.
Oh,
Yeah, Councillor McKinnon.
Councillor McKinnon?
Second.
Oh, good, thank you. So move Councillor Nichols, second Councillor McKinnon. All those in favour? Carried. 7.5 is renew of internal committees and working groups.
I'll move, Madam Mayor, that they remain as is for the next 12 months, unless any council wishes to be off a committee or be added onto a committee, that they remain.
Just before we go, can I ask, do we still need James King Park user group?
I guess we'll know if there's an issue, won't we?
Yeah, I think in terms of the sentiment around the table, it's probably easier to maintain the list and maintain the people on it and move forward.
All right, Councillor Noonan is happy.
What about the Ruby Advisory Committee, which seems to be a bit...
I was going to ask that as well, because it's entirely different to what it was last year. I chaired that last year, but haven't been involved in anything in the last 6 months.
Yeah, there hasn't been a meeting held. They've gone off and formed their friends of the Ruby group. I'd suggest that you maintain the advisory committee as it is, and based on the discussion had a little bit earlier on in the day, it's probably time it'll become a little bit more active. I would thought.
All right, so Councillor Noonan moved that things stay as is.
Retain the status quo, Madam Mayor.
And a second
Second
for that.
Second.
McKinnon, thank you. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 7.6 is review of internal committee representation. Likewise, are we doing?
I'm happy to move, Madam Mayor, that the membership of external committees remains the same.
Councillor McAllister?
Yeah, just a couple of things, Madam Mayor. I'd suggest that we delete Central Murray Transport Forum, seeing as how council exited that one. And also make the point that we add the Willandra Lakes Region World Heritage Advisory Committee as I've been appointed by the Minister as the local government delegate. Also query Arts Mildura, and should that not be West Darling Arts? So with those amendments, I would second the motion if the mover...
I'm happy to have those
Amended.
amended, yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? Councillor McAllister, are you happy to second that then?
Yes, with those amendments.
With those amendments, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Nichols.
Query I'm supposed to be the rep, the Community Safety Precinct meeting. I don't think we had one in the last 12 months.
It's normally called by the police commander out of Broken Hill.
I mean, I'm happy to sit there, but I mean...
Yeah, I'll come back to you on that and make sure that we are in a loop of the schedule of that. That's normally
That bob up when they
November.
when they change when the drinking exclusion areas come up every couple of years. They have one of these to discuss
It's more often that they're meant to be quarterly, or if not 6 monthly.
We used to have them quite frequently.
I'm just wondering, Madam Mayor, whether they've sort of been pushed to the side while there's been their emergency response.
Yeah, I mean, that's Paul Smith's been escalated, and now we've got Andrew Spleeth, I think his name is.
Isn't the one we used to have at the fire brigade, over the fire precinct there?
So Paul Smith, who used to come out of Broken Hill, he's now been estate, so he's working out of Albury now. So there's a new
Superintendent Spleeth, I think his name is. Yeah, so we'll take that on board and certainly notify her when we get notified of there. And I think Gail's trying to indicate to me there's one scheduled for November.
which we need to do because there's been a bit of a bring and go of late over the weekend. I think there's something like 7 vehicles stolen.
Good God.
So we probably need to have one, Councillor Nichols.
How many did you pick up from Tony the last couple of weeks? 5 burnout ones?
I only know of the 2 or 3 that you and I have spoken about. I don't know if there's any extras on them.
Someone said 5.
All right, have a mover and a seconder with, sorry, Gail.
Just run through those amendments. Arts will be removed.
Arts Mildura to be replaced with West Darling Arts, which I believe council is a member of. Delete Central Murray Transport Forum, which council resolved to exit, and include Willandra Lakes Region World Heritage Advisory Committee.
We were going to look into reinstating that other road safety with RMS and stuff. Was that?
That's on the previous Roads and Road Safety Committee.
This was a different one. That's a local one in here. We used to have one with the police and RMS, and Councillor Noonan and myself were on that committee, and it seemed to dissolve, but it sort of was all about like the school crossing at Golgol and stuff we were involved with. That seems that we've got no connection there anymore. Council maybe have, but councillor was sort of
Sorry, Councillor Hayward, the absence of Director Gunn, I'll take that one on notice as well as to our obligations to have that one reinstated or not. I think a clear message is that the engagement or involvement of councillors is paramount for that. So I'll just try and facilitate that.
Did you think it was worthwhile, Councillor Noonan?
Well, the odd meeting we had was reasonable because there's police, RMS, that we could have a few discussions about bits and pieces. We didn't always win.
No.
At least we got the council viewpoint across.
Yeah.
And over the years of having that, I go back to someone like outgoing councillor Brian Wakefield. He highly praised that committee, that engagement. Like I can remember them going out and touring around, like driving around the back roads and
so
doing
you could talk to
those
the local
inspections.
policemen and see what their opinion was of different things, and it gave you a perspective what was.
Hence speed humps and
I
all
was
that
just
sort
about
of thing,
zones.
speed zones and things like that. They were the things that they used to engage with and go to RMS and the police and talk to them about.
Councillor, can you just tell me the speed humps issue that you had in and around there? Where did that escalate to have some action in the?
I don't know, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I think Belinda came into the yard and went around and had a look.
Yeah, so did she take it to a committee or?
I don't know if she took it anywhere. She said they can do the 2 smaller ones, but the big one, the 3 or 4 hunts, has to come before council because it needs a fair allocation of money.
Yep, okay.
But the 2 smaller ones, they Linda.
Was the most recent case where I could see where an issue was raised and it actually got to be a result of?
Yeah, because I mean, when they first was mooted several years ago, they put in traffic speed thing, or made them slow down traffic because they thought it was an inflammatory.
Yeah.
They had to slow down. But the police, as long as they can get their lower BMW over the humps, they were happy. So they're due to give in soon. It'll slow
The
down.
other thing that I can remember them talking about was the back roads, out around in the farming areas, road train routes, all that sort of thing. That were the things that
Yeah.
this committee used
Yeah.
to discuss.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if the speed humps actually got through that committee, that was sort of done through council.
Council, yeah.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Yep, as I recall.
Sorry, Councillor Hayward, I'll take it on board with Director Gunn and try and offer another report into the council forum to put our position forward and representation.
Okay, so the mover and the seconder with the amendments. Gail, you're right with all of them? Yes. Okay. There's no further discussion. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 8.1 Murray-Darling Association Delegates Report.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move that one.
Councillor Nichols, Councillor McAllister, seconded Councillor Evans.
And if I could just make the point as well that the Murray-Darling Association 2-day national conference has just been had. Councillor Hayward and myself have attended that, and there was a lot of information, but it really lacked the human contact element to the point where even you couldn't see how many participants or who many there were, which was a real shame. But there was some really good top-level information. And hopefully Wentworth's conference next year will actually be able to meet face-to-face, and there'll be delegates from right across the basin. I will just make one point, if I may, Madam Mayor, is that the annual general meeting is being held right at this minute, and despite the letter being sent back in July, there's been no attempt to accommodate this council, which is very unfortunate, which means that this council has no vote in the motions put at the annual general meeting, which you might hear more about in the future. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Have a mover and a secondary, so I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.1 is our General Manager's report.
I'll move the recommendation.
Move Councillor Elstone, second Councillor McAllister. Any questions of Councillor Nichols?
Detailed report. How long do we currently keep councillor-only meetings for this council? And if it's further more than 12 months, I've put with the recommendation that we can't, but that we destroy all those after the 12 months.
Yeah, I'll defer further question. We're on track just for that 12 months.
Yeah, we've only been doing since December last year, so we're not even up to 12 months yet. So, but yeah, each one of these is still on the website.
We don't have many.
Well, it's only this meeting, the council meeting is the only meeting that's.
You said the council only knows.
We don't have any council.
No, that's what I thought. So
Yeah.
it's not here. That's okay, thank you.
I'll do this.
It's on page 58, 1.1.
It's 9.78.
Any further questions? Sorry,
questions of General Manager's report? No, I haven't moved a second. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 1.2 is Christmas leave arrangements.
Standard operational matter for your consideration, councillors.
So moved again, Madam Mayor.
Move Councillor Elstone, second Councillor McAllister. Any discussion on any of that? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.3 is the Union Picnic Day.
Sorry, I did have a question. Sorry, just
Melbourne Cup.
Just before we move on.
Councillor McAllister.
I just wanted to ask about landfill sites. I thought were closed on Good Friday as well. I don't see it listed there. I might be wrong.
It is normally closed, but this is only just for Christmas period.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Good Friday, that's Easter.
Thanks, Norman.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you are correct. It is usually closed on Good Friday.
Okay, all good. 9.3 is the Union Picnic Day.
Maybe Melbourne Cup Day.
Move Councillor Wilden, second Councillor Hayward. There's no discussion. I'll put it.
Yeah, question,
Oh
Madam
yeah,
Mayor.
Councillor Nichols.
What percentage of our staff are not union orientated?
I think we're about 50% in and 50% out.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried.
Please record my vote for the 17th time that I'm against this.
We record
disappoint you.
Councillor Noonan against, please. 9.
I should have shocked you and voted for it.
9.4 is 2020 special local roads and transport.
Move this for the recommendation that we go to the Congress, because these video conferences, which I had 2 days of at the moment, you do get a bit out of it, but it's you just don't get the whole lot out of it. And I'd suggest that Jeff Gunn and Belinda from Road Safety should go from that, and I'd like to include myself, but if there's only 2 goes, I'm willing to pull out.
Yep, have a
I'll
move.
second that, Madam
Councillor
Mayor, because I
McAllister.
think Councillor Hayward comes back and gives a pretty comprehensive report from theirs, considering the amount of road that this council deals with, and the fact that 2 of them are major national arterial roads. I think it's really important that we stay in the loop. So I'll support Gunny going along and Belinda if she's available.
I'll just, in terms of logistics with Jeff and Belinda living in Victoria, and admittedly we're going to be 2 months down the track. The cross-border issue when Jeff was prepared to go to Narrabri was an issue. So we'll accept it and move forward with the recommendation as nominated, but there may need to be alternate New South Wales people.
I don't know if most of you councillors realise that Belinda puts a local one together she did it last year with Mildura, and we went down to the one in South Australia, and I believe that Belinda put a better one on locally than the national one in South Australia.
Wow.
You know, so for everybody that was there, got more
Councillor
information.
Nichols.
And that's why I think she needs to go, because she might be able to pick up on a lot of other things too.
Sure.
Question, please. Can I have here the rewriting of the rewording of the recommendation, because I'm prepared to support it, providing it takes place.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Councillor Hayward, just re-say what you're on the tail end of this recommendation that you would like to see.
That Jeff Gunn and myself and Belinda from Road Safety go to the conference in Wagga.
Providing it takes place.
Yes.
Providing it takes place.
Yes, that's fine.
Well, I think it's going to take place. It will be providing our Victorian staff are permitted to go.
Victorian staff.
You will get there.
I believe the conference will take place, but it will be whether our staff can get permission to travel. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've had Councillor Hayward move it, Councillor McAllister second it with that recommendation. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.5 is the monthly financial report.
I'll move the recommendation.
Move Councillor McAllister. Second. Councillor Hayward. Any discussion to be had here? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.6 is the monthly investment report. Okay, I'll ask for a mover.
So move.
Councillor Elstone, Councillor Evans. Councillor Noonan.
I have a question.
Question?
We've got several $1,000 unexpended greens. Are they going to be done when? There's no grant, there's no sunset clause. They've got to be done in a certain period.
The overarching statement, well, I'm happy enough to take on board specifics, but we have not asked for a milestone as the last schedule of works to be extended on anything. So some don't align with financial years, some go to December, some go to April and whatever else. So in accordance with the funding agreement is the answer to your question.
Thank you.
I have a question as well, Madam Mayor, if I may, of Mr. Rule, page 79. At the bottom of the page, it says an amount of money was inadvertently rolled forward, and then those funds have been accrued back to last financial year. Not being a mathematical genius, I wonder if you could just explain what that means.
Yeah, so it was basically just when we actually rolled the term deposit, we got $5,300 worth of interest, but there was a bit of a miscommunication between us and the bank, and instead of actually paying that interest back into our bank account, they just rolled it back into the term deposit. So instead of the term deposit being $1 million, it was $1 million and 5,000. And so when it rolled over again, we had them. So from an accounting perspective, we actually did receive the interest, so I had to account for it as interest in last financial year. But then the other side of that was that it increased the value of the term deposit by $5,000 as well.
And it finished up the little row of zeros.
Yes.
If I may, just one more, Madam Mayor, as well, just about the. Sorry, I don't understand. I was going to ask about investments. I'm sorry, I can't remember what that question was going to be. Sorry.
You're right. We have a mover and a seconder on these, so I'll cancel on this.
We're still saying we're going to get 1.5, or we're looking at 1.5 interest in our budget for next year. And I think I've raised it the last 3 months, and I think we're not going to get it. So is it time we adjust now?
Probably the September quarterly review will.
Because we're down to 0.85 now, and it's a figure of money that we're relying on, I suppose. That's all.
All right, if no further questions, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.7 is the annual disclosures of designated persons.
So moved.
Move Councillor Elstone, second Councillor Hayward. All those in favour? Carried. 9.8 is T Corp loan agreement.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor McAllister. Second, Councillor Hayward. Any discussions on this one?
Are we borrowing this money to offset the loans we've got, or what are we applying for money for?
So that's to pay for the sewer contribution for the Trenton Cliffs development. The council signed off in June, I think, from memory, and also we've got some stormwater drainage works that we have to do around Baronga and Golgol to connect up a number of different subdivisions. So that's where the money will be spent. And it was taking an advantage of a 6-month moratorium by the government, which allowed us to access people funds which we hadn't previously been able to do.
A question. Sorry, did you finish?
I just said thank you.
Oh. Sorry, just on page 90, there's an error where it says BBB rate. This is just looking at the agreement, which is neither here nor there. But I note on page 92, down at the bottom under loan scheme, means the loan scheme is established by T Corp for the provision of loans to councils in connection with the New South Wales Government's Fit for the Future reform program. And it looks like that's the end of the sentence. My understanding was that there was no requirement for councils to be deemed fit for the future under this.
I'd say this is just their standard loan agreement, which they haven't amended to take into account those councils that have been given that.
Can I just suggest that that is highlighted in whatever correspondence, just to make sure that we don't get locked into the same sort of issues that we've seen happen in the past. I'm sure you're aware of that. I don't need to tell you that. Thank you.
Simon, can I just ask if I can see a margin there, 0.55. What's the actual rate?
The latest correspondence I had with them, it's because it's variable, it fluctuates daily, but at the moment it's sort of between 1.5 and 1.6.
Is that base plus a margin? Or
that includes
the
margin.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just that question of Councillor Elstone on page 111, it does list the variables there under point 10, the margin is listed at 0.55%.
Where's that, sorry?
Page 111. Point 10, is that what you were asking?
Yeah, it says the margin's 0.55, I wondered what the actual ratings were.
Oh,
1.5 or 6.
Yeah, inclusive of the margin.
How much longer are these T-Corp loans about?
Well, the initial economic stimulus package that the government announced was only for 6 months. So I think sometime towards the end of this month that's meant to expire. But I know the conversations that I've had with a couple of people with T-Corp over the journey was that they're doing as much work in the background that they can do to try and convince the Minister for Local Government to either extend that for a further period of time or make it more permanent. Because they've now demonstrated through their credit criteria that these councils who previously weren't eligible have met their credit criteria and they're happy to lend funds to them. So from T-Corp's perspective, they can't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to continue to access funds from them going forwards.
quite right. I wonder, Madam Mayor, whether it's worthwhile this council getting in touch with a bunch of other councils who have previously been ineligible and having a combined push for more of this availability to repair the imbalance, I guess,
So,
between councils.
so on that point, in the immediate area of us, Broken Hill's also been successful in getting some loans, and I know Balranald were talking to them about some loans, but I don't know how that's progressed. So in conversations with Broken Hill, whether we can put something together, whether we can suggest that Helen Dalton possibly write to the Minister requesting something.
So this loan agreement, this isn't marking, like going against any of our current loans to look at bringing.
This is purely just to execute for the $2 million that we applied for. And
yes, but there's nothing saying that we can't do that with T-Corp.
That's yeah.
I just think when an interest is so low and some of our current loans are quite high, it's probably something that we should
So
look at loaning against.
So my conversations with T-Corp around that would be they would have to look at each of the loan agreements that we've got with other banks to see what clauses there are in there around breaking of those loans, and if we are able to, if those agreements allow us to do that, we'd obviously have to then look at what the any payments or penalty clauses would be and how much that is. But I would suspect if you're moving from 4.5 or 5% down to 1%, that the saving in interest over 10 years would more than cover a one-off payment to break the loan.
Okay.
I wonder, Madam Mayor, if it's worth getting a report on how we might progress in that way.
Well, I suppose it's entirely up to whether the Minister allows us to continue to loan from T-Corp. So if once we get notification from her as to whether that's going to happen or not, then I would definitely be coming back to council with a report and a strategy as to what would be involved.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll put it if there's no further. All those in favour? Carried. 9.9 is the Baronga Gold Golf Structure Plan. Move Councillor McAllister, second Councillor Nichols with the question.
Sorry. Questions. First of all,
a few questions, did you say?
Yeah. Oh. First of all, I wish to congratulate the team that has put this forward because it's probably one of the better plans I've seen in probably 30 years of council.
Here.
And they're to be congratulated.
Absolutely.
The problem I do have is with on pages 31, 35 and 39, we've put black writing on very dark backgrounds. And I was just wondering if in future we could look at putting, put it lighter back colours, so dark greens, dark blues, very, very difficult to try and see. The other thing is one of the submissions stated about not having clear water and so on and so forth and sewage. I think council needs to probably bring that forward at another time and we look at that. The concern I do have is on the front page, we've changed the logo, and I noticed on our new sign, who changed the logo from the Shire and Two Rivers to Worth the Drive? I think Worth the Drive is fine. However, we were the Shire and Two Rivers, and that was a council function prior, as were the sign colours and so on and so forth. So that's a concern to me. Interesting to see, and I believe looking at the paperwork there, it also says we've got 25 years of residential, 10 years of large lots. So we probably need to look at what we do as far as we go and how far we go, because we're also saying we're only going to have 4,742 people population in Goldon in the next 20 years. So they're things as a council we need to look at fairly closely, because if it's saying we have at this time 25 years of residential, we need to be fairly careful that we service the parts that are already residential, and we're not looking 60 or 70 years ahead. But in all, a tremendous job, so well done to those staff.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to add all of that really great work. Please pass on thanks to everyone involved. On page, I've just got really tiny things as normal. Page 27, the photos and the titles don't align. Something needs to be fixed there. There is a baby change table in James King Park, and I noticed that because I went and had a look. And page 33, the second paragraph, there's ends in a bracket. The letters in the bracket don't match the previous word. That's all I've got, and I didn't go over it with a fine-tooth comb, but again, I think this really sets the bar in terms of public presentation of a structure plan. It's all encompassing. It's got plans for the future, and I agree with Councillor Nichols that this sets us up for a good long term.
Thank you. And I would like to also say that I think it is very well put together. So, I think it's very well put together document. So, all right, the recommendations there. We have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion to it. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.10.
Just, Madam Mayor, I didn't hear the words, but apparently Councillor Wilden declared an interest in that previous item, which was why he got up there.
On his way out, he said the same one as Councillor Elstone, which is the late item report, which we haven't tabled.
9.17, so I don't know.
I think he's just coming back in.
Yeah, might be to do with his son, perhaps.
No, he's not coming back. Sorry.
Councillor's son did make submissions to this. I don't know whether he's seen fit to recognise that.
That's why I think.
I think that was what Simon said.
Okay. Sorry, when he went past, he said he had the same as Councillor Elstone, didn't he?
He did,
yeah.
He's not coming back.
He's not on the toilet.
All right, having a come on.
Keep going through
There it is
9.10.
on the tube for everyone to.
I'll move recommendations A, B and C.
Okay, so Councillor Noonan is happy to move the whole three recommendations. If I can have a seconder, Councillor McAllister.
Any questions, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Nichols.
I have some concerns with these properties. I believe that they've been told if the house burns down, they may be able to rebuild. However, my concern is along the line of where do they sit with rates and so on and so forth, their current rating structure, and their their rating structure into the future, particularly when we have revaluations done. They would have to be revalued, I'm sure, at commercial. And I'm wondering where those people that have been in houses there for 20, 30, 40 years are going to be unfairly, in my opinion, rated, because we've made a decision to change the land tenure.
I'll lead with the first statement is that zoning categories are different to rating categories, and whether the zoning of this to a commercial precinct within Wentworth would nominate a different rating category. Any ideas, Simon, how that may
It's got to do with the dominant use of the land. So if the land that the property's on is being used as a residential house and it's had the appropriate DA approvals and whatnot to be used as a house, well then it would be rated as a residential property. But if it's a mixed use where it's a shop with a house at the back where the predominant use of the property is for the commercial business.
which would already have a business rate attached to it.
Yes.
Okay, well, when they do a reval of the land, how's they going to revalue?
Well, that's up to the day in general to determine that. We don't have anything to do with the revaluation of properties.
But it's valuing the land though, isn't it?
It's valuing the land.
Yeah.
And the B2 zoning is essentially, that is to allow that commercial shop front, have residential at the back, or on top, or whatever the structure of the building is.
My main concern is, say someone's got a house there, and somebody over the road or next door pushes over their house and up goes a great big supermarket, and they come through and do a reval.
Well, still only a valuation of the land.
They still only value the land as being residential. Is that what you're telling me?
No, they value the land. They just give the land a value.
Yeah.
And then what we do is then it depends then on what category of land that land fits into as to what percentage of that valuation accounts for the total value of that particular category. So say for example the property goes from is rated as residential and its land value is $50,000 and all of a sudden it shoots up to $150,000 because that's what the value general has done. All it does is it means that the total value of residential land in that particular area goes up by $100,000.
Yeah, I think Councillor Nichols is trying to determine between a commercial rate and a residential rate.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
We're saying that the dominant use is the rating category.
Yeah.
If the dominant use was to change at the next scheduled revaluation, that's when it would be picked up.
Okay, so there's just be no expectation of any increase, any significant increase, because we're going to go through with these 51 properties.
I would agree with that.
Well, I guess the only comment to sort of support would be if that supermarket scenario happened and brought up, half a dozen that huge money, well, that is a new value. Next time it's valued for that area, but that could happen probably in any case anyway.
And how do we, the other thing is how, just this hypothetical, if a supermarket were to go up and suddenly people that have a car park slap right next to them, how do we go for amenity? Do we do that in planning stages?
Development assessment stage, sorry. Good call.
Yeah, so a B2 zone is a local commercial precinct. It's not designed for huge car parks and massive supermarkets and stuff like that. It's designed for your shop-top houses, your takeaway shops, your medical services, your veterinary hospitals, something that's actually going to serve the needs of the local community. It's not a large-scale thing. Yeah, that's the intent of that zoning.
So is there a different zone for that?
Yeah, light industrial. There's light industrial zoning, then heavy industrial zoning, and B2 is a local commercial zone. So basically what we've got in the main streets of Wentworth right now, what you're seeing right there, like we've got the TV takeaway, we've got the crime hotel, we've got a few takeaway shops where it's their locally owned businesses with private residences behind them. That's exactly what the B2 zone is trying to achieve.
Okay. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder on 9.10, so I'll put it if there's no further discussion. All those in favour? Carried.
Just record mine against it.
Record yours again.
Yes.
Who was that, sorry?
Councillor.
We need a division.
Yeah. And we'll have call for a division, please. Councillor McKinnon, you're in. Yep, thank you. Everyone except for Councillor Evans, and Councillor Evans would like his recorded against. Oh.
Councillor Newman hasn't voted because he wasn't here. We're on page 130.
9.11
We're
is.
just going to wait for Councillor Williams entered halfway through a vote, and we're just waiting to see how he sees fit to record his vote.
We haven't done that.
This is what we're doing now.
Okay.
I declare that,
This is interesting, this one.
I declare the pecuniary interest.
That's
Oh,
okay.
it's finished,
We've just
finished.
just finished voting.
So he's come back in after the vote.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, good. Thank you.
9.11.
9.11, council has been withdrawn from this agenda on the basis that the publicised attachment, being the policy itself, is the one that was in need of change. So based on, we've received submissions to it, and this is a document which doesn't record the changes of the report. We'll deem that this item be withdrawn at this point in time.
We'll move straight on to 9.12, farm stay accommodation. Philwa?
Moving recommendation.
Councillor McAllister.
I'll second it.
Second, Councillor Noonan. Question?
Yes, can I ask you a question? Will this be the end of this saga?
It will be the beginning of the end. So to explain further, Councillor Noonan, in order for the construction certificates and things to be issued to bring the buildings into compliance, we have to go through this DA modification process first. We need to get the DA issued first before they can apply for their CCs and whatever else they need to do in that light. So this is the first step in getting that sort of order.
Councillor Stone?
Matthew, the current zoning, does it allow for a farm stay
Yes,
under the current zoning?
yes.
When did that change?
It's always been RU1.
Yeah, got its approval in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the question I wanted to answer. One now. What's the evidence on the actual business qualifying for a farm stay? Is council required to check that out?
There's a level of development compliance which we do need to undertake. But if we were to do that, then we need to be checking to make sure that everyone in the Shire is using their garages for the purposes of vehicles and not for self-storage. So it depends on what level of development compliance you want to go into. But for this one, given that it is being a bit contentious, we possibly could give it a little bit of scrutiny to make sure that
the point is, given the fact that it has been contentious, backpackers is not a permitted use in the zoning at current. That, I just don't believe it qualifies as a farm stay. It's 10 acres, not going to support 16 people.
Yeah, I'd like to see where that it's proved that it's a secondary production. Like, I operate a intensive farming, and there's 3 employees, and 2 of us are over 70 and 1 40 years of age. And I'd qualify for a farm stay at my property, but I wouldn't need 16 people at it. When you're only growing pumpkins, I've grown pumpkins before, and I know that there's not a big market in pumpkins. And like you're saying, I don't think, is there 10 acres there?
Eight something hectares, 8.43 hectares.
There's only about 2.5 acres of land produced each year, and I just feel that it does not stack up to that secondary business.
We're not talking about work accommodation, we're talking about people having a holiday, aren't we?
Farm stay accommodation, experiencing the rural life.
Yeah, are they picking things to make?
Rosella flowers.
Yeah, that's what.
No, they don't have them anymore.
Oh, they've got them out of there, right. They must go on there, pumpkins.
Yeah, pumpkins.
Councillor Nicholas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine along the same things. It says here the definition of farm stay accommodation is for a building or place to be used to provide temporary or short-term accommodation to paying guests on a working farm, with the use being a secondary business to primary production. When we went out there originally, there was this tiny little thing carved out the front, might have been 2 acres, and we asked what they were, these bushy things that were there. I believe they're gone now. My question was going to be how much acreage. Same thing. If it's only under 10 acres, hell, I think we're stretching it. We're stretching a lot of the thing going on for the whole life of this council.
It's a commercial enterprise, not a, you're saying somebody's built a garage to put a car in. It's a private thing. This has got paying customers.
They're probably paying very well.
And yeah, I think it's very close to $200 a week. I think it's closer to $200 a week to stay there. Up around that top bracket, so
that's a fair bed, right?
So I'm just going on what other backpackers are paying around not theirs.
Mr. Carlin, the changing the bedroom layout to dorms, how's that process happening?
That's going through a certification process for fire safety and access and egress.
Right.
Yes.
And that was my major concern, was the safety of the inhabitants.
And when we first looked at the buildings that are there and the rooms that are there was 48 beds in those rooms, and the same amount of rooms the same amount of room space is going to be there.
We didn't look at the bus.
No, is the bus being dismantled?
Up on the post?
Oh, no, I think it's still there at the moment. Yeah.
We seem to be toothless tigers. This 4 years, we more or less condemned this with fire safety and everything else, and they've just kept moving along, changing the ballpark and kept operating illegally. If they'd stopped operating and conformed to our wishes at the time that were put on them, we might have got through some of this.
That's the reason why we've gone through this process.
Yeah, in the end.
That's why we issued the notice of intention.
Yeah.
That's why we started that legal process to get them to do the work they needed to do, to bring modification up to council and do all that stuff. They've engaged the building surveyors and the certifiers they need. And in light of the information they've received from their consultants and their private certifiers, they've modified the DA to bring it into a scope by which the certifiers can sign off and bring that safety element to the people that are staying there.
And that's why I support it, because I think this has been going on for far too long. This is the first time that we've really seen that they're trying to do the right thing.
All right, I have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. I'll put it. All those in favour?
I have my vote recorded against, thanks.
Just hang on a minute. Can I just have a clear show of hands who's supporting this? 1, 2, 3. So it's lost. And I do have to ask for a division on this as well. So again, I'll ask for a clear show of hands. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, it's, how many? 5.
The division, which one?
I suppose you come up with a regulation.
So I may just ask the council for a planning reason as to why it is being lost, because I need to record a planning decision on this.
My clear view is that a backpacker operation is not permitted in that zone. And I believe we're treating it as a farm stay incorrectly.
That was the consent this council gave. This consent is asking for a modification. This modification is asking for, let's move it into the compliance phase because we've already got the consent to be a farm stay accommodation based on evidence provided to this council some time ago. And that was supported by, from my memory, a statement from registered accountant or whatever came forward to say that off-farm income was to be considered as part of the farm stay provisions, and that's why you approved it, not you, but as a council as a whole. That's why.
No, I support it. That's my view. That's up to the councils.
So it's an interesting decision that we've given that consent, as Ken's highlighted, to the original consent. They applied for modification ready compliance, and now we're saying no. So I have to have a planning reason behind that.
And I did also not agree with the way that it's been handled, but I can see now that this council has been able to steer them around to becoming a responsible business owner. And I think to just continue to deny may well put this council at risk, especially if we don't have a reason.
Well, we have two main things, and one is that it's not a secondary business. It, the facts and figures are not there, and it's known around that anybody that's growing what they are growing would not be able to prove that it is a secondary income. And we know that at the moment that they have not tried to abide by the rules. It's still operating as a backpackers. They have not even tried to come in line with what they're supposed to be doing. And I just believe that it will still continue the way it was.
We still haven't given Mr. Carlin what he's after, but if we asked for this amended DA, did we?
Yes,
we
that was the whole point.
Right,
So,
we asked for it, then we say no good.
yes, so the council asked me what we're doing about the Bradley backpackers. We've got some legal advice. We issued the notice of intention to serve the order. They complied with that. They've done the work. They engaged the private certifying consultant, their fire safety experts. They then came up with modified plans, which myself and the planning team went and actually had a meeting with his building consultant in Mildura in person. We discussed it at length. We came up with an agreed plan. They then formally lodged those plans as a modification to actually then that the certifiers could then, once they got, if and when they got approved, that certifiers could sign off on at that point. The whole purpose of this exercise has been to bring them into compliance. And I take your point, Councillor, that yes, they will continue as they are, but this is just more around the safety aspect of the buildings and the compliance of the buildings, because the land use permissions were given under the original consent.
So if they're doing it, we say no, we're fucking silly, aren't we? Basically, we're going to get decisive.
Well, the other risk is councils I have an obligation to report to is that all planning decisions made by council can be challenged in the Land and Environment Court if the proponent is not happy.
Okay. That's Sophia and I have it. Yeah. Anyway. So what's Mr. Carlin's planning decision to give back to these people?
Anyone?
Council's decision. I think there's a lack of clarity, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, we will go through it. I will ask again. I'm just watching up there. Councillor Nichols, you have any thoughts?
I'm just sitting here thinking, Madam Mayor, what's been said, that's all. And I thought that we had to come up with a reason. My thoughts are here that's come back for 4 years of this council, and really very little has been done there to what councils wanted. And we're now going to put something through, obviously, because we were going to run scared that we're going to land up in some court. That we need to have teeth, because the teeth haven't. Depends on what we're having thrown at us, to whether we seem to follow things up, whether we seem to be violent or not. Or, I have concerns. I mean, see, I'll possibly change my vote, but because of that.
Madam Mayor, I don't believe councils are put here to put people out of business, and we should bust ourselves to encourage people to do things with a bit of a nous and a bit of foresight. And I just could not vote against these people. They've been put through the hoops for nearly, 2 years?
4 years.
I mean, whoopie-doo, we might close them down, but it doesn't give much encouragement for anyone else to spend money here.
You say that we've put them through the hoop, Councillor Wilton, but they have put us through the hoop. They were given directions 4 years ago over a bus up on a pole, all these illegal fire hazards and everything else, and they haven't heeded one bit of advice, and I can't see that they will heed to this farm state.
That's rubbish. They started a business on a little bit of land, and it ran well, and then a neighbour started bitching, and then we found all the excuses to close them down, and I just cannot vote to frustrate them anymore.
Well, this, in actual fact, is the first sign that I've seen that they're actually taking what council has said to them very seriously and investing, money in getting expert advice. So, for that reason, I think it's to be encouraged. Because, frankly, the alternative is that without good reason, we stand to, attract more than just a court case. We've been directing this particular business on what our concerns are and how, we think they should go forward. And now we're seeing that they're finally complying. So, I'd hate to feel like we've been giving them bad advice or not trying to help resolve the issue. This seems a positive, and I think it's to be supported. The other thing that will happen too, sorry for interrupting, Councillor Hayward, is just that, as Mr. Carlin said, if this goes through, council will have greater facility then to be able to keep on top of activities and make sure there are some fairly strict conditions. I note that weren't there previously. So it does actually give us teeth that we didn't previously have to go and continue checking and making sure that they're doing the right thing.
Madam Corrie's point of order, we voted on this, now having a discussion on it. We shouldn't be having a discussion on it. We should give Mr. Carlin a clear planning reason why council voted against it. Not having discussions on the whys and wherefores, the history of it.
There's a bit of uncertainty about the voting, actually. I'm not sure who's voted for or against.
All right, I am going to ask for, I'm not sure whether you got your answer, Matt.
Not really. That's okay.
We will, I just wanted to clarify, I'm struggling seeing that up there.
What we got? We've got a mover and a seconder.
We have a mover and a seconder. I put the first vote and it was lost. And now, is that the division?
This is the division.
Yeah.
So, show of hands for, I can say, sorry.
Show of hands for.
Supporting the recommendation to issue the modification.
And Councillor
McKinnon, you're for?
Yep.
So there's 4 for, 4 for it, and against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's only eight ticks up there, Madam Mayor, I think, so somebody's got.
No, there's no
Not
one
now,
there.
There's no one there, I think, okay.
Okay.
So does each councillor need to give a reason, or does the reason need to come from the council?
It needs to be just a planning reason for the council.
So that was a vote in the negative. So
Yes.
then we need a resolution of council as to what to do.
What that reason for that decision is, yes.
It's got to be made now.
You need to provide guidance and direction to the Director of Planning as to what action you want him to take, because what's going to happen is more than likely the applicant will come back and seek to contest the recommendation of council through varying hierarchies. Of first thing he'll do is he'll seek an amendment or a modification, and then if that's not successful, then he'll take us to a higher court.
Well, wouldn't it be the fact that it's not a secondary visit and that he is still operating as a backpackers?
Unfortunately, no, Councillor Hayward. The legal issue is that we have issued that consent with conditions that he had to get certain compliance done on the buildings. He didn't comply with the conditions of consent on the original DA. So this is what I talked about in the previous council meetings, where you've got a separation of land use permissions and then the construction of buildings. So the DA essentially gave you consent for the land use as that purpose. The issue of the construction of buildings is a certification issue, and that's what this process is being about.
No, but at the end of the thing, is it possible to have something moved that this be held over and all previous applications and correspondence be brought back to council at a future meeting? The next meeting? I'd move that by then.
I'd raise a point of order. How can we vote that is that's something going to rescind the vote? You have to rescind the vote. And that's been done in the council meeting. You can't do it right now. Can you do it right now?
No, there needs to be a notice.
Has to be notice of rescission.
Yeah.
Would the mayor be able to do it as a mayoral minute, but that would possibly be pushing it?
Procedurally, I don't think so. Got to go to the next council meeting as a rescission. Or this has got to be a resolution such as that Councillor Nichols has put up, would say that you haven't supported the recommendation of the officer. Contrary to that, you see fit to have all previous communications and reports brought before the next council meeting for deliberation. But that's
So
sort of
Is that a planning decision? That's just a procedural thing.
Yeah.
That will help with the adjudication of the planning decision.
It would help with it.
Yes.
Thank you, Claire.
Seeking further information to be tabled at a future council meeting to provide deliberation in relation to the matter that's above being lost.
I'd move that.
Well, my concern with that though is that we're not hearing now why councillors are against the motion, and the point of having a division is that there is clear direction on why you're voting against something. And
Possibly the reason would be that it's run over 4 years. We need to review what paperwork has come to us prior to this, and people's memories may not be. Anyway, but John put it up as a motion. It's got to have a second, so we'll just sort of see where we go. I mean, I can see it as being one way of perhaps reviewing what hasn't happened. And there's a lot that hasn't happened. There's a few things that have happened. So it may perhaps cause a different view.
Clearly, if I can just say that my decision is based on the fact that I don't see enough information in this report to make a clear decision, and I'm not I'm not opposed to the forward movement of this process, but I think there's a lot of questions that I need to, and a lot of information that I don't see right here in front of me now. Perhaps will help in the future. But if it's lost today, then that's not where I want to go. But I don't have enough information.
If I may ask, Councillor, what kind of information would you be looking for?
Detail of the process of approval of the farm stay approval. I think we're tending to move into areas where I don't fully understand the processes. If we simply change the heading to allow that process to happen, I understand there's the two separate issues at hand here, but I think I'm concerned about the lack of indication of the legalities of running a farm stay on that property. So in my case, I work in an industry where you don't get the option to be non-compliant at any point. So I have to work with my gut feeling on that. And if I get more information, have another opportunity to look at it, then I think there may be opportunity to move forward.
Okay. Councillor Nichols, you've put forward
a motion that it be this time be held over, come back to a future council meeting, possibly next month, with all the relevant paperwork that has taken place up until this time, and also with what Councillor Evans has said, indicating to councillors the various types of stay and what they enclose, what encompasses them. They come back next month.
second. Councillor Evans, you're happy to second that?
I would second that, yeah.
So that being the resolution of 9.12.
It's a motion being
A motion being put forward. Just waiting for Gail to.
So the council hold over this item to next month, having all previous information brought back to council.
Including the information required for the various farm stay, backpacker, those types of what they involve.
For the years.
Definitions of different of the various types of use.
Okay.
Farm stay, backpacker, working accommodation.
Can someone read that out just so?
The council hold over this item to next month, having all previous information brought back to council, including the information required for use of the land.
Yeah, uses it,
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a move of Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Evans.
Could I just ask, we've just passed a motion saying we've denied it, and are you going to move a rescission notion on that before we move this?
We deemed that the rescission, if deemed appropriate, would come at another council meeting, and this is a motion to say that we provide further detail to review the decision.
It may well be that after that.
So the applicant cannot go to the Land and Environment Court because we've moved and can't do it. Is that what you're saying?
No, what we're saying, we're moving it to the next meeting, Councillor. For further, based on further information as requested.
You're right, Councillor Wilson?
I agree, it doesn't make sense. Why?
Madam Mayor, it should be put to the vote. It's been moved.
It
There's
has
been
been.
comment and there's backslapping at the moment.
Yeah, right. The motion's there. It's been moved and seconded. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? 5-4, and then against?
Please record my vote.
There's 4 against. Councillor Noonan would like his recorded against. Councillor McKinnon, Councillor Whelan, and Councillor McAllister. So that motion's been carried. 9.13 is delegated authority approvals at the end of August 2020.
I'll move the recommendation in full.
Move Councillor Noonan, second Councillor Elstone. Good to see a few still ticking over.
Only one biggie there, the rest are all pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. All right, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. Can I ask for a division on this one, please? Yay, everybody. Thank you. 9.14 is Reserve Junction Park request to become Crown Land Manager.
There's the recommendation.
Move Councillor McAllister, second Councillor Haywood. There's no further.
Just a point of clarity, sorry, if I may. So this is nominating council as the Crown Land Manager.
No trustee, isn't it?
No, it's changed. It's now Crown Land.
That are Crown trustee, and
Yes.
there's no trust left.
Should have already been there, shouldn't it?
If I may, Madam Mayor, just a further update to this report. There is a minor amendment that we need to make to item 5 on page 180. The proposal to extinguish an easement for sewer lots 2 and 1.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we're not up to that.
Yeah, we're
Sorry, my apologies.
9.14.
Oh, sorry, I was on the wrong page. My apologies.
All right, we have a move and a seconder for 9.14. There's no further.
No.
Oh, all in favour? Carried. 9.15 is Hendy Road sewer easements.
I'll move the recommendation 1 through 6, allow for discussion to commence.
I'll second that.
Move Councillor Noonan, second Councillor McAllister.
I just have a question maybe for Mr. Carlin, whether we require a division for this one. Do I understand?
I believe so. No, it's not sure.
I don't believe so, Councillor McAllister. It's an operational matter where you're endorsing me to facilitate the easement creation and payment of compensation.
Thank you.
Yes, you're right now.
Yes. Item 5, so recommendation number 5. We just need to remove lots 2 DP 11038082 and lot 1 DP 803596. Reason being, council is unable to extinguish the easement for sewer of these lots because the easement for sewer does not benefit us. So we just need to remove those. It's lot 1, deposit plan 803596.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a move and a second for that, so I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. 9.16 is project and works report update as of September.
Move the recommendation.
Move Councillor Noonan, second Councillor Elstone. Annie's not here to.
Yeah. Can I put a question in my notice? Dead pool, but no, it's about 3 weeks. completed one pool, but the other two are still bare concrete. And won't be long for pools to be open. And also, I'll ask about the trees again. I've asked before that on the highway, I've asked them to go into the issues with pipes in the ground and power overhead. There's a bloody big tree that you go to one of the houses, there's no one in the power lines, it's right against the wood line. So I think a shallow root speech that grows to 15 feet should be ideal. It needs to be done because it has a massive junk pile of 7 next door. Yep. Just the property next door. Which I've asked the bloke about, but it's not my job. It's get rid of the bloody stuff. It's all sorts of cars and houses.
Cat ugly.
Oh, just a bit.
Councillor Hayward?
I just wanted to ask about the new court there. One side's got shelters and the other court hasn't. Is there going to be
I believe
on the other side?
I believe they're going to reuse the ones that were existing there, and they're going in on the other side.
Yeah, I just noticed. I thought it was a bit odd having it only on one side. Yeah. Looking good.
Councillor Will?
Madam Mayor, could I move a motion about the Renmark Road with South Australia talking about removing lockdown for...
Please, Councillor, we will get to that aspect of quite a concern. We'll just work our way through the planning of project update and planning matter.
Does anyone else have anything that Johnny, he's not here, I know it's hard.
Sorry, I will apologise for Jeff, he's just tied up with another on-site meeting in terms of the roadworks in front of IGA.
On page 192, Madam Mayor, the pavilion, which I believe has been renamed with the backing of the community, I think all of our paperwork should reflect that decision as well.
Agreed. And also compliments to Mr. Gunn again for his staff for providing very informative photos of what's happening around the place.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to compliment the James King Park toilets. I think it looks fantastic. There's been a lot of discussion around Gold about that, so it's quite a fetching.
Is the magpie painted or is it a real one?
No, it's
painted, but it does attract.
I would like to see. I'd like to see something come forward for the toilet block in Baronga. There, it's a blank campus. The Curl one has got smart work on it, but also the new toilet block that's being done in Wentworth, in Darling Street. I think would be good to see some sort of artwork. I've known this guy that done this. It says here, Cherry McGowan. I got to tell you, he started this at probably 11 o'clock on a Monday morning, and by midday the following day it was finished. Amazing to see that artwork be done like that. He's a very, very talented man.
Very good.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The toilet block that we've been doing, you go down to the ski reserve where the pump station is now. Beautiful toilet set up there. I don't know why we are playing around with old toilets and trying to make them look like new when that would have been a simple construction of those toilets and they'll be there forever. They're bomb-proof and no maintenance. Bomb-proof? Yeah, well, sort of. And the other one is, I think in the Barrack Pavilion, there's only going to be 2 toilets in there disabled, and I think, and the others are outside and a fair bit from the building, and we need this building to be a community hub now, and I think we need to look at maybe toilets either close to or adjoining it. It's just a shame it's such a beautiful building it's going to be, and I think it's going to get a lot of use. And I just noticed that there was only 2 disabled toilets that are going to be inside, which that's great for disabled people. But when you've got kids in that, and they've got to walk over into the dark to a toilet, it's not real great.
All right.
Just one quick one on the Wentworth Riverfront project. I guess the question is, are we going to get a plan Are we going to get a plan of determination the day that we have to determine the supplier of that project? Unless I'm entirely wrong, as I probably could be, I haven't seen any prospective.
There's been no designs come before council at that time. I'll just check with Director Gunn in relation to where those plans are up to. I think he was of the mindset that we would be going to tender in the very near future. So I guess the plans are there, ready for review. I'll just try and get those plans too.
The last meeting, he suggested that they would have been here at this meeting.
Councillor Nichols?
Page 192, we're on the Riverfront, where it says that they're coming over the limit. How far over the limit were they? Because I mean, that Riverfront down there seems like it's been going with 20 odd years. I've been on this before this council. It'd be nice to see something happen. This is request for quote. They were going to have tenure documentation being prepared.
Question on notice for.
So I think what that means is that the quotes they got back were more than $250,000. It pushes it over the tender.
Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, we need to, somehow or other, we need to get these things progressed because, one will die sitting around the table waiting for something to happen, possibly if these were done 20 years ago when the plan first came up, or around about that time, it probably would have cost about $100,000. We're going further and further out with some of these things.
All right, there's no further questions or discussion on this. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. We have a late item.
I'll move late item 9.17 be admitted for discussion. Sorry, Councillor McAllister. You can put us into. I'm afraid I think it put us into the private session.
So Councillor Noonan has moved it. Councillor McAllister, would you like to second it?
I'll second that we accept that.
Okay. All those in favour? Carried. 9.17 from Kerry Road Planning Proposal.
And I'll move the recommendation as well if I may. So bold.
Okay, move Councillor McAllister. Gosh, I've been getting. Second, Councillor Noonan.
I'm the old one.
Is there any discussion we had on this? No?
Just to work everything.
Yep, I'll put it.
Everything's happening.
All those in favour? Carried. We'll get Councillor Elstone to come back. Oh, do we need a division on this one?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Can I just ask for please show of hands with division? You with us, Councillor McKinnon? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Just off screen there.
That's everyone. Thanks, Gail. We'll just wait for Councillor Elstone to return, and while he is, we'll start with questions. Anything, Councillor Noonan?
Yes, I've two issues. One, I've raised this once before. It says Bombala Road there, a small dirt road. Bombala Road, which goes from Brony Prison down to the.
Oh, yeah.
I think the growers there have encroached on the road reserve with their mines. I've raised it before.
I think that would be common to the district, wouldn't it?
No, this was, geez, I tell you, look at, funny get 2 cars past their places, they're right up against the.
You raised?
Yeah, a long time ago, but now raised it again. And also, I noticed outside the Duxton vineyards here in Duxton Farms in Walkwell, there appears to be rack ends and big lumps of concrete, which I reckon will be in the road reserve.
They've only just appeared.
Yeah, last couple of days, maybe a week ago.
A week ago.
Yeah, only someone swerved on it, and would be all
Yeah,
sorts of.
I did look at that myself.
They pulled back to their boundary, back on their property. That's all for me, thank you.
Councillor Hayward?
Yeah, I'd just like to be put to council about the Yabby, so that we can have a vote on whether it becomes part of our setup. I've got people that want to work on it,
So a report to council?
Yeah, motion.
Yeah.
So that we can decide whether council's going to be involved. Mainly only a DA or somewhere to put it.
Is that it?
Yep.
Councillor Nichols?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We put out some time ago a 2-year extension on Murray Street. You don't call it Murray Street now. Can I have a full report, please, on the progress and timelines? I noticed that they've dug up some little channel that was there. That's about all that's happened. People that live opposite have been going to be covered in dirt and dust again this year. The one tree that has a kookaburra nesting in it is still there. It's the only tree on the proposal. So if we can have a full report on where we sit with that proposal. Trees coming into Wentworth. Now, I believe the letter that came in for those was addressed to the Mayor, the General Manager, Mayor and councillors. I saw no correspondence on that because somebody asked me about a question on it and I said I haven't seen it. One of those trees has lost its leaves already on the far side and one's been removed. So somebody must have wanted a tree. Can we possibly check the watering on the other side, particularly the ones up near the hospital? They were the 3 biggest trees that were planted there. They were the 3 healthiest trees, and at the moment they look like 2 of them could die, and one's turning particularly yellow. Caravan Park, I believe, is 80% closed, and I believe we have only 2 lead employees now working there. I have been told on several times that none of our employees went to apply for the COVID funding income. I believe that the others are now working under an agency, and I'd like a report, please, on how much of the Caravan Park is functioning and how many employees we currently have employed there. Please, don't want names, just want to know because that's my understanding. And the final thing is, could counters be placed on the back road, and I think you call it River Road, between Dearden and Golgol, of Dearden and Virunga, so that we know an accurate count of the amount of vehicles that are using that. Last month when I came up that road, in the short time it took me to come, and we're using this for a further thing that's something coming up later, of how many people use the back road, because I counted 34 cars last month, 35 cars this month coming one way. And it'd be handy to know how many...
on one day?
While you're driving.
Today coming across, I counted 35 cars from Dearden to the Virunga turn-off here.
Probably 10 of them were police cars.
No, weren't. None of them were. There was one bus. But I mean, I think it's handy to know, because I believe our back roads are used considerably more than what we think they are. And it's just, I think it'd be handy for the council to know. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Through you, that back road, I've asked for that to be an 80k zone at one stage, because I believe it's a dangerous road for the amount of traffic. If you go down to Tasmania, when you turn off a major road, all rural roads are 80k's.
After dark, it's about 50, unless you want to have an emblem on the front of your car. But yeah, so it's just one of those things that, I mean,
that's noted. Councillor McKinnon?
Yep, no questions, just that I'm going to have to shut down at 12.
Okay. Councillor Wilden?
Yes, when are we going to occupy and fully use the Civic Centre, please? Because I am getting a lot of questions, and I found a press cutting when we bought the building over 3 years ago, and I don't think I'm pressing anyone too much. I understand what we're getting done is by contract, so maybe they need a bit of a hurry up.
Councillor Wilton, you had another proposition before about the...
Yeah, I want, when it's appropriate, I want to move a motion, Madam Mayor, about the South Australian reopening the COVID-19 restrictions to allow South Australians to come to New South Wales and Victoria. And that is going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on our road, the Renmark Road, from Renmark to Wentworth. I believe we should write to the South Australian Premier and through our State Member of Parliament to the Premier, asking it to be declared a state highway. That will not only do that, but it will give more money. If we can get a state highway, we can get more money for our other two roads that are state roads, that not highways. And I'd like to move that we write those two letters, please.
Being noted as well.
So was the SA Premier and local member?
As New South Wales Premier via our local member.
Don't like our local member.
Councillor
There in 2 months.
Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two questions related to the one item. Is Council aware of, and did it contribute to, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority report, Mildura Supplementary Airspace Review, December 2019?
My understanding that we didn't contribute to that, but we've been made aware of that.
Does Council have a copy of it?
Sorry, I had Director Gunn a little bit prepared for issues around that. I don't
happen to have prepared. My second question related to the same item: has Council entered into a contract with any flying training organisation?
The answer to that is definitely no. I might just add that the aerodrome and future of the aerodrome in terms of airspace and compliance and fees and charges and any other aspects associated with possibly the content of the Mildura report, we'll address that in the October council meeting, where we'll bring forward the future management in terms of obstacle limitation surveys and flight paths and noise and whatever else. All of those aspects we'll bring to the October meeting for ratification or endorsement by council for future growth and expansion and management of the Wentworth aerodrome.
I'll hand this one over to you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Just I'd like to see a report on coming into that season again, and this on CCTV coverage. And I'm not just being Wentworth centric here. I'm perhaps looking at an overall plan where we can apply some CCTV coverage with input from all parts of our shire. I think we could bring people into this. Of course, myself, I'd like to see a report on the Wentworth area, because we're starting to have some real issues there. And in and around the town and the wharf, the river area, I think we need to step that up pretty quickly. I don't know what our CCTV coverage is right at this very present moment within our township. And if that can be clarified ASAP, that would be great. Because if incidents, if we have an incident in our town at the moment, the first question we get asked, have you got a record of it on CCTV? Have you got a film? Have you got any evidence that this has happened? It seems to me that policing is based upon surveillance. So that's what I would like to see.
Councillor Elstone.
Thanks.
Okay, good. All right. That. We now have someone move us into
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that Council adjourns into closed session. The recording of the meeting be suspended and members of the press and public be excluded from the closed session. That access to correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the closed session be withheld unless declassified by separate resolution. And the reason being that it's related to commercial incompetence.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Newman, thank you very much. we can ask if everyone can.
Returns to open session. Returns to open session, that members of the press and gallery be re-included, that video recording be reactivated, and that resolutions made in closed council be reported back to council.
Thank you. And seconded? Favour, carried. Just maybe open the door to let them know that we have gone back, and then I'll ask Ken to just set what was done.
From the
Back in open council. Thank you.
Gail.
Mayor, open the door for me.
Go and read it with.
Neighbourly on
What can you read?
The resolution.
the resolution.
Thank you, Ken.
The resolution from the closed session.
Yep.
Okay, so I have to go back into the closed minutes.
Just for the purpose of the recording, I'd like to say that in the closed session of council moved that a construction agreement be entered into with the developer of the subdivision on the corner of Midway Drive and Pittman Avenue for the construction and benefit of the surrounding catchment area, and those costs be apportioned accordingly, and authorise the general manager and mayor to affix the seal to that construction agreement.
Thank you. That concludes meeting, and next meeting will be the 21st of October. All right. Thank you, and meeting closed.
See you, Don.
See you, Don. Thank you.